a world within. If you look at London today and pull back to ask what's going on, what you'll see would be and should be a cast of India, Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, Colombia, Argentina, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. Essentially, it's the same dynamics at play. And that's what makes this time very exciting. And what is more interesting is London is simply a brighter light of what is true around the world. So you people are here, for those who come from without, you are here at just the right time. Okay, let's quickly look at the three starts of infrastructure policy. No, but before doing that, I better emphasize one thing. I know you come from different places, you come from different backgrounds, you're engineers, you're probably even medical doctors, you're MBAs, you're probably sociologists. Just feel at home. I'll argue that the rigor of complexity casts like an onion in layers. And what is crucial is to know one's access to the subject of complexity. That will come. But going back to what I'm calling a world within, if you look at HS2, I'm going to throw these acronyms in the hope that you've had time to read the notes. So whether you look at HS2 or you look at this ultra low emission zone, or you look at the 20 miles per hour speed limit, these are hot policy issues of the moment. But each of those pertain to the interaction of the state, the market, and society in respect to infrastructure. Think of the three as being interconnected, and then throw in infrastructure, and just remember that space where the state, the market, and society are interconnected and moving, are excited, they're thrusted upon by climate change and digitalization. So immediately that is London, but that is the entire world. So it's a world within. Okay, now I want to think that we are all at home and we begin looking at this world within. The question then is, how do we understand the space? How do we understand that space? And my argument is, we must be able to abstract sufficiently to look into that space. We must be able to step back and then see that space. And the only way we can do that is by mathematizing the space. Hold on a moment. At that point, a few people, the lectures I give around the world, a few people freak. I tell them, no, just relax. And I tend to give one of my best examples is from Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens is largely responsible for what we call PPP today. All of you have heard of PPP, public-private partnership, because it's so crucial to our time. And that emerged from the thinking of Anthony Giddens and Tony Blair with the third wave. That's how this wave started. But what is interesting about Anthony Giddens, one time he said, you can look this up, please Google. He said that he was equipped only with GCSE mathematics. For many of you, that is year 15, 16. age 15, 16, mathematics. That's it. So he really didn't have any knowledge and doesn't have any knowledge of advanced calculus. He said this stuff. So I'm not saying something untoward. But with that basic knowledge, he was able to formulate a concept that has come to captivate the world. How could it be? It's only because scientific rigor, the mathematics, physics, has as an onion. And once you have your layer and you appreciate that you're part of the onion, you can do a lot with it. Okay? So let's all be at ease. You don't really need to have Galois, Évariste Galois group theory or differential geometry. That is all important. But the finesse will cast as an onion. And that's a very important message. And it explains why I have one reference. I didn't want to have noises of reference. I have one reference at the end, and it's from Murray Gell-Mann. Okay, good. So we are at ease. Now let's look at this world where the state, the market, and society are in interaction, thrust upon by climate change and digitalization. The challenge we have is, at the moment, we don't have a scientific framework for analyzing that space. Why? Because the old workhorse is Newtonian, which works for two bodies, at most three in interaction, that we can handle. Then at the other extreme, if at the other extreme of randomness, if you've got, say, a glass of water, the glass of water that's before you with 10 to the power 24 molecules, that order. And that order of randomness, we kind of understand, we can pull out some macro effects from it, thanks to Boltzmann and statistical mechanics. What about mid-order? The state, market, society, we're talking about that space, comprises tens of millions, the order 10, 10, 6, 10, 7. So we have 10, 6, 10, 7 in interaction. In the past, all those people would be marshaled into two groups by politics. So you have the left, the right, and then decisions can be handled as a two-node subject. But that is being challenged. It's being challenged by that phone on your palm. Every kid has it. Every human being has it. And because everyone can wake up and voice their opinion to the level they understand, we then end up in a world where the two-node system, which subscribes well to the Newtonian frame, is being challenged. So what else do we have left? The other end, which is closer to the Newtonian frame of randomness, is this thing called quantum mechanics. But it works when we are looking at the very very small world. And while it's the most accurate frame we have of science, it's just weird. It's outside our intuition. So we've looked at three. The one that we need most is the order 10-7. And we are saying we don't have it. We're just trying to develop it. And that's what we call complexity science. Okay, so what is the main immediate finding of complexity science? Is that we have this effect. I think Liz has told you this probably, or she will, called emergence, where we get behavior popping, which behavior cannot be explained by micro rules. So you've got rules or things interacting, rules of this case people interacting, but those rules don't explain what we see. And that is perhaps the biggest challenge of complexity science. All right. And now, how do we respond? The one thing we cannot afford to do is to continue with the wave of heuristics. I call it the tyranny heuristics. And what I mean, you find a few people who have been in position of directing some of the big projects, or having a view of some of the big projects, picking a few commonalities and running around telling everybody how they should deliver mega projects. So if you've been a CEO, for instance, of some mega project, then you can run around with some notes telling people how they should manage mega project. That is hogwash. It's tyranny of heuristics. What we face is something that is, as I said, complex. It's a complex space. We must attempt to understand it, and we must be modest enough to say, I don't know. We must be modest enough to say, I don't know, and endeavor to take what we know and ride it on. Now, on what we know and what we can do in respect to control of the space. And by control, I mean steering the space like you steer your car. So it's a nonlinear space. You'll have gathered that. And the only way we can attempt to control the space is by being incremental and reflexive. Being incremental and reflexive. Take a step forward, bend, look back, and take the next step. And that is why you find the world of infrastructure singing the chorus of modularity. Modularity is essentially nonlinear control, but that's not the language used. But when you use the language of nonlinear control, you're able to understand practices like modularity better. All right. Now my time is nearly up. I told you I was going to restrict this to just a few minutes so that we can open up to questions. But at the end of the notes, you will see a few directions of wonder, a few areas where I think during your stay at UCL and beyond after UCL, please take a moment to look deeper and deeper at complexity. This is not something you're going to cover in your 1 year. You're going to spend time studying, you get excellent grades, go back. But take time with complexity. I've mentioned a few names. I've mentioned Paul Adosh and how he developed network theory. I've mentioned the illuminating more is different by Phil Anderson. Please take time, look at those. And I've mentioned institution, norms, our norms and values. I'm not talking about large organizations here. Part of our problem in this world is that we just throw around words. So you find people talking about big organizations as institutions. I'm talking about norms and the values of society. So take a moment, look at how norms and values string across that space of state, market, and society. The link, the connection there is primarily institutions. And Elinor Ostrom and Douglas North, those are beacons. Those are key figures of our understanding of institutions. And then I bring out Robert McNamara, just because the broader world we live in, that world, particularly that so-called developing world, Incidentally, the World Bank attempted to get rid of the word developing a few years ago. I think they just gave up. That is a world that was structured by Robert McNamara post World War II, and we still live that world. So it's in order. It's just right to spend some time looking at how that world was constructed. And yes, Hashman. I have here Hashman. Hashman was crucial. Hashman brings me to thinking about social discount rate. Whether you're going to design a bridge, you're going to design some big airport, whether you're going to do manage the energy system of a country or its water system, you are going to discount. And what discount regime are you going to use? What discount framework? Perhaps the deepest challenge in delivering, in designing and delivering, and as planning as well, infrastructure, is the social discount rate. It is challenging because it is not it is not a tool, it's not a frame that should be left to science alone. It is a frame that a generation agrees by some kind of consensus as a way of looking at infrastructure. And it determines everything. It determines whether you're going to invest or not. By now, you should know this. And whether and then the question is, how do we arrive at that frame? And the world is lagging behind. I'm talking about the world. I'm not talking just about the poorer countries. In fact, some of the poorer countries are doing much better than some of the rich ones. A good example is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is doing much better than most of the world because they are attempting to address that question. Look at the UK with the Green Book and what is happening. The Americans have their own regime. But please, don't come to a point where all you have is some discount rate that is placed there. Is say, oh, it's 4.5, and you go on discounting. No. You're going to be leaders of this field. You're going to be the big persons of infrastructure. Understand that the discount rate, every country should arrive at this discount rate. A region can agree on a frame, but it is a strong message of one generation to the next. It's not a pure subject of science. Science only explains the effect of whatever is agreed. So those are three. I've grouped them into three directions of wonder. Something that you ought to pay attention to way long after we finish this conversation. Okay,